Namaskar. Today we are going to discuss about introduction of Diploma in Apparel Merchandising. The Diploma program which is on offer in current admission cycle. Apparel Merchandising. Apparel means garment, dress, कपड़ा, जो भी आप समझे, कोई भी गारमेंट जो कपड़े से बना है और मशीन द्वारा स्टिच हुआ है, दैट इज गारमेंट और अपैरल. एंड मर्चेंडाइजिंग is a process of selling the product, any product. Apparel merchandising is selling apparel products. So this program is all about the apparel industries and how the garment are made, ready-made garment are made, how they are reached to the niche market, and how they are sold in the market. This program is having the level of diploma. After the eligibility of this program is 10 plus 2. After 12th you can enroll in this program, and the medium of this program is English only, and the maximum duration of this program is 3 years and minimum duration is 1 year, and the fee structure of this program is 6,500 for annually. For one time fees you have to finish this diploma in 1 year, and in some cases you are not able to complete this diploma, you can extend it for 3 years. This program has some objectives, like this program develop a human resource for apparel industries, like how the garment are sold to the market. The ready-made garments are constructed in a lot of numbers, so it have to create a system in the market so that the prepared product is sold to the ultimate consumers. So in this program, the merchandisers are prepared as a human resource for the apparel industries. It provides conceptual and practical training to the merchandiser who want to be a merchandiser in apparel industry. It is also a supplement for the professional degree and the training for the merchandisers who are already involved in the apparel industry. जो कोई भी अभी involved है apparel industries में and they want to get a certification, they can enroll in this program. It provides income generation opportunities also, and specifically for women, because women want to start their home business and they are interested in the garment and apparel industry, so they can opt this program for their career opportunities. This program is about how the garment are made, how they are processed in the market, and who will make this product, these garments. This program have 3 theory courses, 1 internship and 1 practical. All the courses of this program is of 8 credits. Total of 40 credits for 1 year you have to finish. In every course you have to study different kind of process and area of the apparel industry. In first course is about the basics of apparel industries and entrepreneurship. And second course, theory course, is about the fashion, textile products, development and merchandising. And the third course is about the management of merchandising, function of apparel manufacturing. So now we will discuss about the details or detailed program structure of this program. The first course is BSc 005, Basics of Apparel Industry and Entrepreneurship. In this course, there is 5 blocks and 3 to 4 unit or 5 unit in each block. First block is about the introduction of apparel industry. When you introduce in the apparel industry, first of all you have to understand about the what is industry, what is apparel industry. You have to know about the overview of apparel industry at the global level or international level, so that there is a second block, apparel retail Indian and global level. And in first block is about the apparel industries in national level and global level. You have to understand about the different organizational setup of the apparel garment manufacturing unit, because apparel industries is about the garment manufacturing, how the garment are made. So in first block there are two units is about the overview of apparel industry, national and international level, and third unit is about the organizational setup of a garment manufacturing unit. And the second block is about apparel retail is at the Indian and global level. In this, the 4 units are there. For first unit, apparel retail industry in India, how the apparel retail industry is rolled in the national market. E-commerce in the apparel industry. What is e-commerce? Nowadays we are purchasing our garments and accessories from the mobiles and computers. So e-commerce is nowadays a very high topic. So we will discuss about the e-commerce in the apparel industry in this block. Then introduction of global apparel market, because the apparel market is not at the national level. It is beyond the national or global level. So we have to understand about the global level of the apparel industry. So this unit is for the introduction of global apparel market. Then concept of FDI and introduction. For this, the concept of FDI is there for how the garment is made and the foreign country are purchased Indian garment, how the buyers are come from the international market and purchase our product and apparels. So this block is about the apparel industry. Now the third block is about business development conceptual framework. In this 4 units are there. The first unit is about market segmentations, positioning and targeting. When we go through the market, we get some segmentation in the market like formal wear, casual wears and party wears. And in case of different categories, men's wear, women's wear, kids wear, then occasion wise the sports wear, specific sports wears and athletic wears, gym wears. So in this unit we will discuss the different market sections, targeting groups and the positioning at the national and international levels. Then assessing global market. When we talk about the business development conceptual framework for the apparel industry, it is a global market. How the Indian companies assessing the global market, how they approach to the global market. This unit is talk about it. Then the second unit is business portfolio. How the apparel industry develop their portfolio at the international levels or national levels. There are many companies, many apparel industries which are in competition and they have their image, the brand images. So the company have to make a business portfolio for the national and international market. Then brand management. The apparel industry have to maintain their brand and image and reputation at the national level or international level. So the garment industry have to think about the business development conceptual framework. So the block 4 is all about the merchandiser. Who is the merchandiser? Role and requirement of the merchandiser in apparel industry. Merchandiser is the person who is directly contact to the national or international buyers for making different numbers of the garments in the industry. He or she is the main person, that is a human resource at the apparel industry who make profit for the garment industries. In this block, there are different type of units. First one is skill set for the merchandiser. What kind of skills should merchandiser have? Merchandiser should have good communication skills, good convincing power, so that they can grasp their buyers and get a consignment for the apparel industry. Then good communication skills. So the unit for this communication skills is there, and some kind of basic computers the merchandiser should have. For this, 14 to 19 unit is devoted to the basics of computers, in which you understand about the computer, how to use Excel in the business, how to prepare a presentation, how to work in the Microsoft Word, and how to use different kind of softwares like CAD, CAM in the apparel industry. The last block is about apparel entrepreneurship development. When we talk about the apparel industry, there are some component of the entrepreneurship is there. So this block is devoted to the apparel entrepreneurship development. Entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial skills. What kind of entrepreneurial skills you should have to start a new business in apparel industry? Then identification and selection of business opportunity. If you want to start any business related to apparel industry, what kind of idea you should take and execute on it? This unit is talk about identification and selection of the business opportunity in field of apparel industry. Then the second unit is about business plan preparation and analysis. In this unit, you have to prepare a business plan for your own idea. You have to take some idea for the business plan in apparel industry, related to apparel industry, and plan for the execution. So you have to formalize or you have to conceptualize that idea and prepare a business plan for the apparel industry. Then new enterprise creation and management. Then the last point, when you plan, then you have to how you execute that plan, and how to you create a new business creation enterprise in field of apparel industry. So first theory course is all about the merchandiser, apparel industry, and entrepreneurial skills. In first course, you should aware about the what is apparel industry, how they work, what are the departments in the apparel industry. When you understand the department, then you can execute your idea as a new creation of new enterprise. So this is all about first theory course. Now the second theory course is about fashion, textile, product development, and merchandising. In this, the 5 blocks are there, and 4 to 6 unit in age. In first block, there is an introduction in fashion and consumer behavior. When you understand about the apparel industry, now it's time to come in a core in the apparel industry. What is apparel? How they are made? From where they are made? So this kind of idea is for this course. First block is introduction of fashion and consumer behavior, because apparel industry is very closely related to fashion industry. You have to make a fashionable garment or new creation so that your product should sell at the reach of the market. So in this block you have 4 units, and in which elements and principle of design is the first unit, in which you learn about how the designs are made. What is the concept of designing of the garment? Then understanding of silhouette. What is silhouette? Silhouette is the outline of the garment. When you talk about the silhouette, you think the trouser have straight silhouette, the frocks have bell shape silhouette. In this unit, you understand different kind of body silhouette and garment silhouette, and how the body silhouette is hid by the garment silhouette, you can understand in this unit. Then fashion and overview. When we talk about the fashion, it is all about how the fashion is come, how the fashion forecasting will be done, how the garment, how the color, how the fabric will come in next session. This is all about the fashion. Then fashion accessories and their importance. Fashion is not about only dress. It is all about head to toe accessories. The headgear, the handgear, the footwear, it all about the accessories. So this unit is targeted for the fashion accessories and their importance in fashion. Then second block is about fundamentals of textiles, how the fabric is made. When you talk about the garment fabric, it is about the property of the fabric. So this unit, this block is here, fundamentals of textiles. Textile related to the cellulosic and protein fibers, the fabric made from the cellulosic and protein fibers, the synthetic fibers, and fiber to fabric. Fiber is a small unit of fabric. First of all, fibers come from the plant and animal, then it is twisted into a yarn. So that fiber to yarn is the process in this unit is covered. And after that, fabric construction techniques. Different fabric construction techniques are there, like weaving, knitting, non-wovens. So weaving is the first of all fabric construction technique, in which different kind of weaves like basic weave, plain weaves, and twill weaves are there. Different kind of fabric structure are made with the weaving. Then fabric construction technique, non-woven and felts. The fabric which is not made with the interlooping or interlacing is non-woven. It is only adhere with the some glue or some mechanical action and made a fabric. Like आप घरों में यूज़ करते हैं डस्टिंग के लिए फैब्रिक जो सॉफ्ट होता है, फेल्ट होता है, दैट इज़ नॉन वोवन. देन निटेड अपैरेंट टेक्नोलॉजीज, द निटिंग टेक्निक जो आप घरों में करते होंगे, आपका जो फैब्रिक होता है, स्वेटर्स मेनली निटेड होते हैं. देन तो निटिंग टेक्नोलॉजी इज ऑल्सो कवर्ड इन दिस कोर्स. देन fabric properties and its end uses, how the fabric is act on the dress or person. So according to the property, the fabric is used as an end product. Like wool is warm, give a warmth, so the wool is made used for the making outerwear, socks and gloves or accessories. The third block is about textile processing. The fabric or fiber is not used in raw form, so that some kind of textile processing is there, like textile finishing, dyeing of fabric, printing of fabric. Finishing, like some kind of waterproof finishing, some kind of starch finishing is given to the fabric, so that fabric is protected from the adverse conditions after making a garment. Then dyeing and printing is related to the embellishment of this fabric. आप उसको सुंदर बनाना चाहते हैं, enhance करना चाहते हैं उसकी fabric को, then dyeing and printing process is used in the fabrics. Then these textile processing give some adverse impact on the environment. So some environmental issues and textile industries are also discussed in this block. Next is apparel production line and product development. In this block, we will discuss about the apparel line production, how the 1,000 numbers of shirts is being produced in the apparel industry, how the fashion trimmings are used in the garments, and product development. Final product development is placed in the garment industry. Then organization of line, how the stitching line is organized that way at a minimum time period they produce numbers of products. So the fifth block is about the merchandising planning management. The production of garment required the planning and management. So merchandising play main role in this the development of the garment. So introduction of product merchandising interface with other department, how the merchandiser interact with other department to complete their consignment. Merchandising planning, line preparation, line presentation, visual merchandising, and store layout. How the garment is placed in the store so that it can catch the eye of consumer and consumer pick that product immediately. So in this block is talk about the visual merchandising and store layout, how you place your final product to the consumer so that it can get more awareness. Then the third course is about management, merchandising function, and apparel manufacturing. In this course, the sourcing and buying is the first block, in which when we talk about the sourcing and buying, when we prepare a product, we have to require some raw material, some fabric, some trims, how they are sourced from the industry for a lot of number of the production. So sourcing for apparel, major apparel sourcing centers nationally and national level at or global level, and sourcing organization and vendor management. When we purchase from the material from the vendor, we have to manage the all process of sourcing from the vendor, and we require some vendor management. Role of buyer and buying house, there are some third party which is involved in the production of the garment. So there is introduction of role of buyers who purchase the garment, or a buying house, the third party which is involved in international consignments only. Then strategic sourcing process for apparel, how to source, how to procure the material strategically so that company bear maximum profit and get maximum order for the industry. The second block is about international trade and finance. When we talk about the national level, international level business, there are some trades and finance are also involved. So this block is devoted to the international trades and finance, like basics of international trade, how to trade, how the fabric trading is there, export financing and insurance, documentation, what kind of documents and what kind of procedure we require for textile exports, payment receiving process, because it is an international business, so how they pay or how they receive payment from the buyers, and government aid to the apparel exports. Now the third block is about apparel manufacturing, how the garment are made. First of all, patterns are made for the garment. Introduction of pattern, in which you have to understand about the body form, the body structure and body measurement. Then you have to make a patterns. Then components of garment, each garment have different kind of components, so this unit is talk about the different kind of components like collar, cuff, pockets. Then introduction of apparel manufacturing, how they are stitched in this sewing line. Then different kind of seam and stitches are there for the production of the garment. Then threads and needles play important role in the stitching, because the threads and needles adhere two layers of fabric together, which make the fabric to the garment. Then assembly system in the industry. When the production is for the thousands of pattern pieces are there, different kind of swings and needles are required for the stitching of different part of the garment. So assembly system is required for the apparel industry. Then apparel quality control is required for the quality assurance. So quality control for apparel, inspection of fabric, apparel, compliances issues, role of testing laboratory and care labels. See, apparel industry is thinking about all the quality control. So from initial stage to sending the final product to the consumer, they inspect fabric and final products. they resolve the compliances issues. The testing laboratory play major role in the quality control. So the fabric at initial stage is tested by the laboratories, and final garment is also tested for the strength and fading of the product. Then care label are also pasted on the garment so that the consumer can maintain the life of garment for long time. Then the fifth block is about the apparel costing. The product is ready. Now the costing time. Introduction of costing, what is costing, what is the difference between costing and pricing, and basics of apparel costing, how the apparels are calculated, costing of apparel, and global competitiveness in costing. Now the third component of this program is practical. In this, there is not only theory courses, there is a practical component which is involved. All the 3 courses you have to perform a practical activity on a practical manual related to your topic of 3 courses, theory courses. Then the last one is the internship, which is a major part of this program. In this, you have to go to the apparel manufacturing unit, and you have to be a part of that manufacturing team. You should get involved in various process of garment production, like sampling, production of garment, quality control, or you may also help the senior merchandiser or junior merchandising or your internship supervisor, which will allot to you. So this program is all about the skilling and all. There are some job opportunity after this program, like merchandising, fabric export houses, merchandising, visual merchandising, fabric export houses. These are the job opportunities you can get after taking this diploma degree. So the last date of this present admission cycle is extended till 10th October, and this is a link for the enrollment. If you are interested in this program, please enroll. And I think your queries and your doubts are clear in this session. Thank you.
Are you interested in television journalism or radio journalism or online journalism? Or do you want to learn with the flexibility of open learning? Or if you are a working professional, wants to enhance your knowledge and skill with certification in the field of electronic media, then School of Journalism and New Media Study Ignou offers PG Diploma in Electronic Media for you. This program includes audio and audio-visual program production for radio, television and online platforms. Here are some important details about the program. We have total 8 courses of 32 credits, 6 theory courses, 1 practical and 1 project. Eligibility: bachelor's degree in any subject. Minimum duration 1 year, maximum 3 years. Medium is English, but the students can write their examinations, assignments, practical and project in Hindi also. So if you are interested in television, radio or online media, please come and join Ignou's PG Diploma in Electronic Media.
Good evening, dear friends. As you have seen, today we have gathered here to discuss about the poetry of T.S. Eliot, who is the prominent writer, essayist, poet, and he has been prescribed in MEG 1, that is British poetry. As you all are appearing for the examination for MEG 1 in the coming session, so today we are discussing on his important poems and the writer at large. So today we have Professor Nandini Sahu, who is an eminent poet herself and who has written a lot of books. Her poetry has been translated into multiple languages in our country, and her books are being taught in different countries as well. So in order to discuss about the poet like T.S. Eliot, I requested her and she gave her kind permission. So we are here, Professor Nandini Sahu, and we will have some questions, and definitely these questions are going to help you for the examination. So let us begin our today's discussion. So welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So as T.S. Eliot, we know that he was a renowned poet, essayist, and publisher. He wrote some dramas as well. So, madam, there is a question which comes from our students that they want to know what is the contribution of T.S. Eliot in English literature, and I request you to please introduce T.S. Eliot and his poetry for giving the wider understanding to our students.
Right. Thank you for inviting me to this program, to this very important discussion. Hello, learners. We will talk, coming 30 minutes, we are going to talk to you about the contributions of T.S. Eliot, not just as a poet, as Dr. Prashant has already told you, that he was a poet, he was a critic, he was a theorist, he was a dramatist, he was an editor. You know, he had many hats to his credit. So we will talk about the multiple aspects of T.S. Eliot's personality and his poetry. And I'm very, very fascinated with the lines, the very striking and important lines that T.S. Eliot has written in his multiple essays and criticisms. About T.S. Eliot, the best thing I would like to say is the poetry theory symbiosis. You know, you cannot really distinguish T.S. Eliot the poet from T.S. Eliot the critic and the theorist. When he was writing his poetry, the literary theory, the criticism that he wrote on several occasions would definitely get into his poetry. And when he was writing his literary criticisms and his theories, the theoretical essays and debates, when he was writing all those things, he wrote that sometimes more often in a very plural and poetic language. So you cannot actually distinguish who from the who. The T.S. Eliot, the poet, the dramatist, T.S. Eliot, the critic, the theorist. So in this discussion, Dr. Prashant and I, we would be giving you so many aspects of T.S. Eliot's poetry and also the most probable questions, the possible questions in the term and examination and the assignments that are there in your Ignou website, and also in the UGC NET examination, the kind of questions that we usually give from T.S. Eliot, we will be talking to you about that. When I tell you about the UGC NET examination, let me put it on record here that in our English NET examination, one major portion definitely deals with T.S. Eliot's poetry, criticism and drama. And also there is another UGC NET examination on IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems. And under that Indian Knowledge Systems UGC NET examination, there are 10 units. And the unit 10 deals with the Western philosophers, critics and writers who were inherently influenced by Indian knowledge systems, and T.S. Eliot appears in that. So isn't it a welcome fact and a very interesting thing for all of us that T.S. Eliot is not just taught in the English departments or also in the American literature departments, but also under the IKS, under the Indian knowledge systems. Today, in the beginning, in the first part of this discussion, me and Dr. Prashant, we would be talking to you about the poetry of T.S. Eliot in general, and also I would like to quote a few interesting and very important lines of T.S. Eliot vis-a-vis his literary criticism, and then Dr. Prashant will talk to you about Indian knowledge systems in the poetry of T.S. Eliot. We have decided like that. In the meantime, if you have any questions or queries, you have our numbers. Please get in touch with us. Well, when I said that I will be quoting some very striking and important lines of T.S. Eliot, the first one is Eliot was, he introduced the modernist movement. I would, if not introduced, at least he was one of the most important critiques and a person with deep engagement with the modernist movement. So one question that usually we give you in our term and examinations is discuss T.S. Eliot as a modernist poet or the person who introduced the modernist movement, something like that. So play around that idea, T.S. Eliot as a modernist, is it? Okay. And then one of the quotations from T.S. Eliot essays, usually we give that as a part of your question paper, that no poet, no artist of any art has his complete meaning alone. His significance, his appreciation is the appreciation of his relation to the dead poets and artists. You cannot value him alone. You must see him for contrast and comparison among the dead. Well, probably in this portion, he talks about the historiography of any writer. You have to distinguish between history and historiography. The history of a writer may be the geographical, the topographical history of a writer, but when we talk about the tradition and also the individual talent of a poet, then we talk about the historiography that he or she belongs to. So in this case, somehow I feel, maybe it's my very personal feeling, that T.S. Eliot, he talks about new criticism. I mean, he is one poet who has strongly supported new criticism. But at the same time, here and there, I find the ideas of the reader response in the poetry of T.S. Eliot. So one question we usually give you is, do you think that T.S. Eliot belonged to the school of thought of the new criticism or to the reader response? So probably you should look at that and start preparing that on the basis of the poem that you have in your syllabus. Now, coming to Longinus and the essay on the sublime. Longinus talks about sublimity and the status, the standard, the high quality of poetry. Somehow I feel a parallel between Longinus and T.S. Eliot when Eliot says that talent is required through a careful study of poetry, claiming that tradition cannot be inherited, and if you want it, you must obtain it by great labor. So when Longinus says that there should be high quality, high standard of a poet inherently in him or her, T.S. Eliot also more or less, he talks about that, doesn't it? And then this morning when Dr. Prashant was telling me something about this quotation, I immediately jotted down something very, very interesting when T.S. Eliot says, immature poets imitate, mature poets steal. Well,
right.
So would you like to say about that?
I was astonished while reading this line.
Right.
And how can a poet of this stature says that poet can steal? We are stealing somewhere connects us with
plagiarism.
Plagiarism, and
Okay.
whereas the poets cannot be plagiarist.
Okay.
So
Okay.
in that respect.
Okay, exactly. Dear students, he was not really talking about plagiarism. I mean, he was not promoting plagiarism per se. So when he said immature poets imitate, mature poets steal, probably he meant intertextuality and polyphony. In the age of intertextuality and polyphony, and in the period of, say, new historicism, when we are reading two texts parallelly, probably he meant that mature poets steal not words or ideas or languages, but maybe a school of thought. Maybe try to belong to a school of thought. Probably that's what he meant. And then another very interesting thing, usually in the examination we give you this question, talk about T.S. Eliot's theory of impersonality. And then try to apply that to the poem in your syllabus. That question we usually give you. In the theory of impersonality, what Eliot says, the mind of the writer is like a receptacle. and in which the writer has to store a number of varied feelings, emotions, and experiences. So the mind of the poet is a receptacle. He talks about some kind of a chemical process. So in a chemical process, like I have also taken down that one, referring to the scientific analogy, Eliot discusses the vital role of the mind of a poet. He says that when you write poetry, some kind of chemical reaction takes place in your mind. He says that the combination of oxygen and sulfur dioxide produces sulfurous acid. But then, for the smooth and successful conduct of the chemical reaction, the presence of a filament of platinum is a must. So, a shred of platinum, a piece of platinum is a must for this chemical reaction. Similarly, the mind of the poet, according to T.S. Eliot, is like that shred of platinum. Inputs and outputs. Suppose I look at something beautiful. For example, I look at a beautiful flower, or I look at a beautiful river for that matter. And then I store that beauty in my mind. And then the next moment, the output can be poetry. And in the process of my feeling for that flower and my expression in the black and white, my mind should not undergo any change. The poet's mind is like a shred of platinum in the chemical process of production of poetry. Well, I have my share of problems with this. When T.S. Eliot talks in favor of the theory of impersonality and the maybe the lack of involvement of the poet in the process of the chemical process of creation of poetry, but can you ever claim that any poet in the world, in any part of the world, can write poetry where he or she is not engaged or involved in the chemical process? I doubt that. See, for example, T.S. Eliot's poem, Geruntion. In the poem Geruntion, which is one of his simple and nice good poems, it's a feel-good poem. In that poem, the person, the protagonist, Geruntion, he stands for T.S. Eliot. He is very, very personal there, that during the World War, whatever things were going in his mind, the frustration, the death, the decadence, the bloodshed, whatever was going around in the society, Eliot was feeling rather frustrated. And the character Geruntion, he expressed the inner self, the mind of the poet himself, the mind of the poet T.S. Eliot himself. So when Eliot talks about the theory of impersonality and the poet's mind being a catalyst, he writes poetry where you can find a reflection of his personality. Well, another poem, if you look at Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, he says that let us go then you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Before T.S. Eliot wrote that kind of a modernist poem, maybe this is the first ever modernist poem in British literature or in world literature, you can say. Before that, in almost all the poems, the imagery, the allusions, the comparisons, the metaphors, the similes were like a lover would invite a lady to go to a beautiful place, maybe to the moon, maybe to a garden, or maybe to something very beautiful. But here, the lover is asking the lady to go to the operation table, to go to some evening when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. So, you can actually see it, that there is some surgery going on and a patient is lying on the table and his body is wide open, and you can find that kind of an imagery. So, I somehow see the bloodshed of the world wars were reflecting in the poetry of T.S. Eliot. So, I feel that T.S. Eliot, the powerful critique, the powerful poet, the man of letters, he wrote very many things, and somewhere, somehow, at some places, he contradicted himself, which is quite natural. We will not be dismissive about the great poet, the great critique, just because somewhere, as readers, we find that he contradicts himself, isn't it? And then another part is where he talks about art may be said to approach the condition of science. This is a very controversial statement he has given in one of the criticisms, that art may be said to approach the condition of science. Now, the condition of science is very logical. Science has to justify everything, prove everything. And when it is arts, one has to go by the heart. One has to go by the emotions. But he somehow tries to amalgamate the two of them. And he says that poetry is not a turning loose of emotions, but an escape from emotions. Now, how can poetry be an escape from emotions? Well, you have to justify that. We give you this question that talk about the poem in your syllabus vis-a-vis this idea that poetry is not a turning loose of emotions, but an escape from emotions. It is not the expression of personality, but an escape from the personality of the poet. So this is one thing that we usually give you. And that is how T.S. Eliot says that Wordsworth's theory of poetry is inexact. I'm quoting inexact. When Wordsworth says that poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, T.S. Eliot says that this is inexact. He problematizes the theory of poetry of William Wordsworth. And also T.S. Eliot says that the social function of poetry should have a universal appeal. Poetry has to be universal. Poetry that is subjective, poetry that is intimately personal may not be universal poetry. Here, you can also create a criticism that in T.S. Eliot's poetry, like Darshan or like Love Song of Alfred Prufrock, or many other poems like The Wasteland, which Dr. Prashant will discuss with you now, a lot of personal imagery has been used. His images, his metaphors, the similes that T.S. Eliot uses are really very, very intimately personal. That's why he gives a lots of notes and references in his poetry. Even at the end of every poem, you will find a notes section where he talks about the metaphors, the ideas, the imagery that he was taking from different parts of the world. And in this case, he was taking a lot from India. He had a Sanskrit teacher. He had a teacher who taught him Sanskrit language, and that is how he got influenced by the Bhagavad Gita, which reflects very clearly in 4 quartets and also in this poem that you have in your syllabus. And then T.S. Eliot talks about Walt Whitman, Song of Myself. The great poet in writing of himself writes his age. Walt Whitman somewhere wrote that I sing of myself, I celebrate myself, for the autumn belonging to me as good belongs to you. Similarly, T.S. Eliot says that a poet, when he writes himself, he actually writes his age. That means the period that he belongs to, he writes. And another quote from T.S. Eliot, which is again a part of your question, poetry is a living whole of all the poetry that has ever been written. So any poem, for example, if I write a short poem to T.S. Eliot, this is a living whole of all the poems that have ever been written in the historiography of poetry. So he tries to connect the poet with his history, with his past. And the progress of an artist is a continual self-sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. How striking lines. Well, I agree to that. When you are a writer, you have to leave your personality a bit. You have to leave your ego, you have to leave your alter ego, everything. And then it's a continuous extinction of your personality. You get into your character, isn't it? And then he described his criticism as a byproduct of my poetry workshop. So his criticism, he was questioned a lot about the kind of criticism he was writing. He has written multiple criticisms. I will also come to that. And the question is, Eliot's impersonal theory of poetry is the greatest theory on the nature of the poetic process after Wordsworth's romantic conception of poetry. So this question we usually give you. After Wordsworth's romantic conception of poetry, if something new came up, in the form of new criticism, or if something came up in the part of modern poetry, then this is T.S. Eliot, two powerful people. That's what we discuss. And about T.S. Eliot's poetic drama, only poetic drama can be artistic. Realistic prose drama is bad, very bad art. He used to say such very, powerful lines. Sometimes he would be dismissive. He had his strong likes and dislikes. And if he wanted to say something about somebody, some critic, some author, he definitely did that without any doubt. Like about objective correlative. He dismissed Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, that it lacks objective correlative. And if he wanted to write something about somebody, he promptly did that. And then he wrote, from time to time, it is desirable that some critique should appear to review the past of our literature and set the poets and the poems in a new order. Here I am reminded about Alexander Pope, who says that old order changeth, yielding place to new. So new order should come up. In this quote, in one of the essays, T.S. Eliot says that from time to time, any critique or any poet should come and dismiss or discuss everything that has been written and then create new order in poetry. So this is what you find in the poetry of T.S. Eliot. If you see his early poetry and his later poetry, the poetry that he wrote in America and the poetry that he wrote in England, I think in his mid-40s, he shifted from America to England and he took the citizenship, and then he wrote Ash Wednesday, the poem which was under a lot of controversy. So you also see in the poetry of T.S. Eliot, there is a sea change in the style, in the technique, in the thematic approach, everything that he wrote. There was a sea change. There was a very striking shift from some kind of poetry which was a bit of personal to a kind of poetry which was very much oriented with myth and folklore. I would say myth. Let us not go to folklore. We need another class to discuss folklore. Let's talk about the myth. So Indian mythology, Indian knowledge systems, he used that extensively. And then he was deeply influenced by Matthew Arnold and Aristotle. He was very, very supportive, appreciative of Aristotle. And he said, the classic of entire Europe is Virgil. He was very appreciative of Virgil. So this question can also come for you, that the influence of Virgil in the poetry of T.S. Eliot, with reference to the poem in your syllabus, discuss that it can be there. And conceptual symbols and emotional preferences were the ideas with which he wrote so many essays. And then he said that poetry should be neither pedantic nor vulgar. Vulgar means probably he meant poetry which is not of a high style, of a grandeur. And by pedantic, probably he meant that poetry should not be preaching. Rather, poetry should be entertaining, while the deep internal message should be there, like oxygen in water. Probably he meant that. You have to deconstruct T.S. Eliot. You have to understand his personal imagery. Now, I'll just give you a little bit of information about the criticism that T.S. Eliot has written on general topics. He wrote on criticism and theory, tradition, romanticism and classicism, religion and literature. And then on poetry and drama, he wrote the poetic process, impersonality and poetry, objective correlative, unified sensibility, form and poetic drama, the actor and personality, the auditory imagination. And under the individual authors, he wrote about many authors, but majorly his focus was on authors like Ben Jonson, Matthew Arnold and Thomas Hardy. So this is a very, very basic and general introduction that I gave you about poetry. Now maybe Dr. Prashant would like to take over, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. And in fact, you raised a very important issue, that theory of impersonality, and you were not agreeing with this concept.
Yeah.
In fact, what I believe, that theory of impersonality, somewhere it has a reference of Indian philosophy, where he might have read, he definitely read Bhagavad Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, in which the protagonists talk about the detachment from the worldly things. So theory of impersonality might have come from that concept, and is one of the famous poem which is responsible, which is the reason for giving him this Nobel Prize. And this is Wasteland. In the poem like Wasteland, he used a lot of myths, and which has an abundance of references from different scriptures, different mythologies. And out of these all mythologies, Indian mythology and Indian references are at the higher number. So I would like to quote the last stanzas, which have been taken from his last chapter from this Wasteland, and its name is What the Thunder Said. The Wasteland has 5 different cantos, out of which the last one is very significant as far as the Indian philosophy is concerned. So the lines start like Ganga, and very beautifully I would appreciate here that Ganga, he has not used it as a Ganges. Like mostly Britishers use Ganges, but he used the exact term Ganga. That is showing his affinity towards Indian philosophy and the Sanskrit literature and Sanskrit words as they are available in the language. So he used the language like Ganga was sunken and the limp leaves waited for rain while the black clouds gathered far distant over Himavant. Here again he did not use some another similar word for Himavant. He used the exact word what is available in our Sanskrit scriptures. So he has used the myth of Prajapati and his three pupils,
Right.
gods, sons, and demons.
Right.
So he has given the instruction for all his three
Right.
pupils.
Right.
So the line start like Datta,
Huh.
what have you given?
Huh.
My friend, blood shaking my heart, the
Right.
awful daring of moment surrender,
Right.
which an age of prudence can never retract. By this and this only we have existed.
Right.
Here in these lines he has somewhere he has the pain which has come after the hecatomb of World War II, World War First,
Right.
and he has also felt a lot of pain because of the downfall of the European civilization,
Right.
because of too much use of materialistic
Right.
materialistic things. So the poem goes further, and he gave another solution to the problem, that is through Dayadham. Dayadham here for be compassionate for the people who need it.
Right.
So in which he wrote like, I have heard the key, turn in the door once and turn once only. We think of the key, each in its prison.
Right.
Thinking of the key, each confirms a prison.
Right.
Only at nightfall, ethereal rumors revive for a moment a
Right.
broken coralliness. Here he has given the suggestion to the humankind that we must have the compassion for the people who are really downtrodden, who are having some pains, and we have to feel their pain empathetically.
Right.
So the third solution he has given to the humankind for making the world livable, that is damyata. Damyata means to control our desires, because desires are endless. So because he had recently seen the impact of World War I and the impact of atom bomb.
True.
So he might have felt that it is required to be controlled in one's desires. So he wrote like, the boat responded gaily to the hand expert with the sail and roar. Likewise, the poem continues, and
Right.
very interestingly, that poem ends not with the English words, but from the words of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad,
Right.
which is one of the prominent texts from our Indian scripture.
Right.
And the poem ends like Datta Dayadham Damyata Shanti Shanti Shanti. So here his masterpiece Wasteland ends with the Indian scripture. So here we can see that he has an influence of Indian philosophy in his
Right.
poetry. And he found the resort in Indian philosophy for making the world peaceful and happy and livable lives.
True.
So thank you very much, ma'am, that we came here, and the insights which students took from you and the examples which you have given, you have in fact capsuled T.S. Eliot and his works, and our students are definitely going to be benefited in his in their exams.
Right.
And not only for the exams, but they will also get the insight to write their own poetry, and they will learn something from the very important poet what we discussed today, T.S. Eliot.
Right.
And thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
We welcome you to join the bouquet of programs offered by the School of Humanities, the Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. The Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi is a mega university today. It was created by an Act of Parliament in 1985. It is the world's largest university with an enrollment of about 3.5 million current students and 3.2 million alumni. Ignou has also been accorded the highest grade of academic excellence, A++, by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, or the NAC. Now, during your time at Ignou as a learner, we will help you complete your program of study with world-class printed materials, audio and video programs. We have more than 35,000 academic counselors who will guide you till you complete your program of study. We also provide live interaction with your teachers at the headquarters via teleconferencing mode, and live interactive radio counseling besides this, supported by regular TV and radio broadcasts. The School of Humanities was created in 1988, and we welcome you warmly to join any of our programs of study. Ignou degrees, diplomas and certificates are recognized not only in the country but are also very well received across the globe. We look forward to your journey with us, and we
Hello learners, I am Professor Kumar Bhardwaj from School of Engineering and Technology of Ignou, and today I'll discuss with you the flow rate of sewage. As we were discussing about that water supply to the smart cities basically, so in this continuation basically one important topic is treating or dealing with the sewage. Because whenever we are using water, then sewage is generated, and it is very important to deal with the sewage properly. Otherwise, there are many problems. If we are not dealing the sewage properly, if we are not collecting and transporting the sewage properly, if we are not treating the sewage properly, then there will be a lot of problems. That sewage water will be on the roads, on the streets, and there will be foul smell, there will be foul scenes basically, there will be spread of many diseases. So to keep our cities clean and safe, we need properly collection and treatment of the sewage. In last lectures, I discussed with you that what is the source of the sewage. So just to recall that the source of sewage is the use of water basically. Whenever we are using water, then sewage is generated, because after use it is the waste water which comes out from our houses, from our industries, from commercial installations. Various sources generate the sewage. Then the problem is to collect this sewage and transport this sewage to a place where it has to be treated, and then after final treatment it has to be disposed in some way basically. Generally it is disposed in the water bodies, generally rivers or streams after treatment, so that the streams or rivers are not polluted. So we should not put our sewage without treatment into the water bodies, so that our water bodies remain safe. The life system in the water bodies or the aquaculture basically, that remains safe. So the question is that for design of the sewerage system means that network of pipes and pumps and all these things basically. For their design, we need the exact amount of sewage which is being generated in a particular location. So for that simple method, I told you that the simplest thing is that first of all, this sewage is having two components, which is the municipal waste that is coming out from the houses and commercial installations or industries, and second one is the storm water basically. So we have to calculate or estimate rather the sewage coming from the houses or commercial installations, and the storm water that is coming during the rains basically. So if we are not calculating or estimating properly this sewage, then designing of sewer lines, that is the pipes, basically sewer pipes, that will be difficult. Because if we are designing for a lesser one, then there will be an overflowing of this sewerage system, means that water will be coming out from the manholes and all these things. Again, it will be creating problems. On the other part, if we are designing a bigger sewer pipes, then it will be a wastage of money, because for that we need bigger pipes which cost more. Second thing, we have to dig deep, means we have to lay these pipelines or the sewer lines deep. So there, that excavation and laying these pipes, all these things will again cost a lot. So we have to be at some optimum discharge basically, for which the sewers has to be designed. So for that we should have a proper way of estimation of the sewage, basically how much runoff will come, or how much wastage will be generated, sewage will be generated, that we have to do. So simplest way is that for that calculation of the municipal sewage is that, because you know that sewage is generated because of the use of water. So it has some relationship with the water being used, amount of the water being used. So you can say that if we are supplying some 135 liters per day per capita, so you can very well estimate that how much water is being supplied. But as I discussed last time also, the whole of the water being supplied is not generated as a sewage, because there are many uses, there are many consumptions which do not generate the sewage. Just like watering the gardens, watering the pots, plants in the pots, so many things, such activities are there basically, in which no sewage is generated because of the use of the water. So the whole of the water that has been supplied to a locality does not come out as a sewage. It is rather lesser. But certainly whenever there is a rain, so due to the storm water, that amount is exceeded, and that total sewage becomes more than the water supplied. So these things have to be kept in mind. So if we know that how many households are there, or what is the population, and per person how much water is supplied, so simply you can multiply the discharge into the number of persons. So every day you can expect that this much of sewage will be generated. But as I told you that the whole of the water used is not coming out as a sewage. So we have to have some methods basically. So the rate of sewage flow is also not constant. It changes. Because of that consumption pattern basically, that sewage is being generated. So like in the morning we are using a lot of water for different activities. So the maximum sewage generated is generally in the morning. By the time it is noon basically, so almost all the activities are over. So the least you can expect in the midday, basically at the noon time. Again in the evening, lot many activities are done in the kitchen and other uses basically. So again that sewage generation again increases. So this sewage amount is not constant throughout the day or throughout the season even the effect of season is also there. For example, in summers a lot of water is used, so their sewage generated is more, whereas in winter season the amount of water used is less, so less amount of sewage is generated in the winters in comparison to the summer. And of course, as I told you that there is a role of the storm water in the sewage generated. So in rainy season, this sewage will be highest in case of the rainy season. So this is the variation basically from day to day, from hour to hour, and from season to season. So, but we have to design our sewer lines basically for the maximum discharge basically, so that its capacity is not exceeded, and it can safely transport our sewage to the treatment point or the disposal point basically. So we have to plan accordingly. The sewers should be designed for carrying maximum load and should ensure that no deposition will take place in the sewers at minimum flow. So it is also very important, basically we call it as a self-cleaning velocity, that whenever the lowest amount of sewage is flowing through the pipes or the sewer line, it should be capable of keep the sewer clean basically. Means what is happening that in the sewage there are a lot of solid matters are there which are in the suspended form basically. Whenever there is a case of less velocity or deposition of water, then these solid matters try to settle in the bottom basically, and if this happens basically, this will settling goes on and they may clog or choke the sewer lines. So we have to ensure that at minimum flow, at minimum discharge, basically the sewers are not clogged or choked because of the deposition of material. Means there should not be any chance of deposition of the solid matter in the pipelines or the sewer lines. The minimum and maximum flows are mentioned in percentage of average flow. Means we find the average flow and then we estimate these or represent these maximum flow and the minimum flow as a percentage of the average flow. As I told you that in the maximum discharge generally is generated in the morning, and as you know that for going office, for schools, children going to school, so lot many activities are done in the morning time between generally 8 to 10 a.m. and this is the time when the maximum sewage is generated from the households basically. Then this value falls down and reaches minimum between the 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. because this is the time when there is hardly any activity which are using water except that urinals and your toilets basically. Then rate of flow again rises in the evening because again in the evening there is a work in the kitchen, then laundry and all these things basically. So that way slowly it again increases. So there are certain formulae which are used for estimation of the sewage discharge. One of the formula is BAPSH formula, which says that the maximum discharge Qmax can be represented or estimated by using this formula 5 Q averaged divided by P to the power 0.2. Means here what is that? Qmax is the maximum rate of flow of the sewage, Q average is the AV is the average rate of flow, and P is the population in thousands. So using this formula you can calculate or estimate the Qmax, that means the maximum discharge of sewage, but there is a limitation for use of this formula, that this formula can be used only when the population lies between 1 and 1000. Now another formula is also there for estimation of the sewage, that is the Harman's formula, which says that maximum discharge, that is Qmax, is equal to 1 plus 14 by 4 plus P to the power 0.5 into Q average. So in both the formulae or equations, you see the relationship between the Q average, means the average discharge, and the maximum discharge basically. Only thing is that what is the relating factor? What is the relating factor which is correlating these Q average and the Q max in the two formula? Here there is no restriction of population for use of this formula for the estimation of the sewage. So by putting these value of P, which is the population in thousands, and the Q average, you can get the value of the maximum discharge, that is Q max, by the Harman's formula. So using these Babbitt's formula and Harman's formula, you can very well calculate the maximum discharge if you know the average flow basically. Then climate and temperature are another principal factors which affect the sewage flow rate. As I discussed you, that if it is a summer, then there will be a more use of water, so more sewage will be generated. If it is winter, then less water will be used, means the less sewage will be generated. Then average flow is assumed to be in month of March and April, and again in the October and November months, because these are the months where the moderate use of water is there basically, not maximum, not minimum. So this flow we generally for the month of March, April, and there in October, November, this flow may be taken as the average flow, and accordingly by using the two formula which I just explained basically, we can calculate the maximum discharge or the Q max also. The minimum rate of flow may be obtained in December, January, while the maximum flow is seen in July and June basically. So the peak factors are used to design a flow slightly higher than the average annual flow rate, that is the ratio of peak flow to average flow. This is the average annual flow rate, which is peak flow to the average flow. So these peak factors are used to design a flow which is slightly higher than the average annual flow rate basically. Also, maximum flow variations are reflected in domestic and little sewers as they receive flow directly from the source. The peak factors are used to design a flow slightly higher than the average annual rate flow, as I discussed just now. Now, what are the methods or formulae for calculation of the quantity of storm water? So till now we were discussing about the sewage basically. Now we are coming to the storm water. So because where from this storm water is coming? This is coming from the rain. And if you simply measure the rain intensity, that will not give you directly the storm water flow, because whatever amount of water is coming down to the earth in the form of rains, it is not whole of it is not converted into the storm flow basically. Why? Because first of all, when it is raining, there is a lot of infiltration into the ground. So when the ground is saturated, then what happens that there are some ditches, there are some depressions in the ground, there may be some vegetation. So some of that precipitation is trapped in the vegetation also. Some of the precipitation means the rain is trapped in the ditches also, or the depressions on the ground basically. So when all these are full, then only water starts flowing and it becomes as a storm discharge. So that way, whole of the rainfall which is coming down to the earth, it does not convert into the storm flow. So we have to find a way that what amount of rainfall will generate the storm flow basically. So for that there are different methods, and here we will discuss two methods basically. First one is, what are these two methods? One is the rational method, another are empirical formula method. In empirical formulae method, there are lot many formulae given by different scientists based on their experimental work basically, and these can be used for calculation of the storm flow, though they were developed in different you can say scenario, different conditions, different geographical conditions, different climatic conditions. So any formula or method which is developed for a particular region, for a particular climate, that is valid, more valid to that conditions basically, they preferably should not as a general formula. Another one is the rational method. In rational method, what we do, let us talk about the rational method, that it is a most commonly used method for determination of the quantity of storm water basically. In this method, what we do, storm water flow is assumed to get affected by many factors. Like, what are the governing factors basically we are explaining here. One is a rainfall intensity. Of course, if the rainfall intensity is more, means heavier rainfall is there, then the storm flow will be more. If the rainfall intensity is less, then certainly the less storm flow will be seen basically. Then features of the catchment area. What is the meaning of this? Catchment area is the area where from the storm flow is generated. Means rain occurrence is there, means it is raining. Then in what area basically we are interested, from where we want to calculate this storm flow. So the features of this catchment area, or the this characteristics of that catchment area, will also govern the generation of the stream flow. Means what amount of storm flow will be generated, that will be governed by the features or characteristics of the catchment area. As I told you earlier, that where it may be undulated catchment. So due to the presence of these you can say the depressions or ditches there in that catchment area, there will be a large amount of water which will be stored in that, and it will not convert into as a storm flow. Similarly, a difference will come when you say that it's a bare land or it's a vegetated land. If it is a vegetated land, lot of amount of rainfall is trapped in that vegetation and it does not convert into the storm flow. But if it is a barren land, basically there the almost whole of the amount of the rainfall will convert into a storm flow. If it is a plain area, if it is not having that you can say the ditches or undulations or the depressions in that area basically. Then of course it is also important that what is the duration of the storm. Means that long duration storm will certainly generate the more amount of storm water that is going to the drains basically. If the rainfall is for a small duration, then certainly less amount of storm flow will be there. So these three factors basically are quite important for that generation of the storm flow from a rainfall event or rainfall activity basically. Now how we calculate or estimate the storm flow in this method, that is the rational method. An equation is used basically here, which is Q equal to C dot I dot A upon 360. What are these? Q is discharge, of course, quantity of the storm water that is measured in cubic meter per second. What are the C, I and A? C is the runoff coefficient, which I'll discuss. What is this basically? I is the rainfall intensity in mm per hour, millimeter per hour. That means how much millimeter of rain has occurred in 1 hour. That is the rainfall intensity. And as you know that these are this rainfall intensity is measured by various instruments by different methods, but it is measured as a mm height, means the water collected, the height of the water collected in mm in 1 hour basically. That is what rainfall intensity is represented in millimeter per hour. A is the area of that catchment, which is called a drainage area, means the area in which that rainfall is occurring, in which we are interested that from that area how much storm water will be generated. So that quantity of storm water will be generated basically, and this area in this equation, basically this area is taken in the hectares basically. So by putting these values in these proper units, basically that will give you the quantity of storm water in cubic meter per second. So that discharge you will get by putting these values in this formula. Then so there was one term there, runoff coefficient. What is that? Runoff coefficient is there. This runoff coefficient is also known as the impermeability factor basically. And what happens that after a storm, some quantity of water gets infiltrated into the soil, and the remaining water which enters the sewer is known as the impermeability factor. The storm water generated after a rain will not reach sewer lines or drains entirely. As I told you that there are losses. From that rain there are losses basically. So these losses have to be deducted from that rain. Then only we will get the amount of water, storm water generated that will go to the sewers. A fraction of this get percolated into the ground. Some amount get stored in the ditches or the ponds. Then some of it is evaporated, and only the leftover water reaches to the drains and the sewers. So this is the reason that why the whole amount of water that is coming on the surface of the ground in the form of rain, that is not going to the drain or the sewers basically. So to determine the quantity of rainwater which reaches the sewers line, the total rainfall is multiplied with a coefficient which is called as the runoff coefficient. After continuous rainfall for some time, the ponds and ditches are filled up and the atmosphere become nearly saturated. Then the runoff coefficient mostly depend on the characteristics of the ground surface as porosity, wetness, ground cover, etc. So these are the factors which govern that what will be the runoff coefficient for a particular catchment area. And this runoff coefficient for different type of surfaces, the value of the runoff coefficient is different. As you can see from this table, that for a area which is having, for a surface which is having the forest and the wooded area, that is depending on the ground surface and the soil characteristics, the value of runoff coefficient is 0.012 to 0.2. But if you go down to number 8, if you look at the asphalt pavements in good condition, means where the no infiltration, almost no infiltration is there, you will get that this coefficient becomes 0.85 to 0.90. Means the more the infiltration or the chances of trapping of rainwater basically, so runoff coefficient is lower. Whereas there is no chances of infiltration or percolation and that rainwater being get trapped basically in ditches or some depressions, where all these things are not there basically, there the runoff coefficient is higher. So that way this runoff coefficient changes from the one area to other area depending upon the characteristic of that surface. So using this runoff coefficient for a particular area, you can calculate by using the rational method, which was the formula was Q equal to CIA upon 360. So if C is known, I is known, A is known, you can get the value of the storm water that is generated during a rainfall event. So that way we can calculate the storm water. So earlier we calculated the sewage from the households and the commercial institutions basically, There the second component, which is the storm flow, that we can calculate by this method or some empirical formula also. So this way we can calculate the amount of sewage which is generated from a locality or area. So I hope you must have enjoyed this discussion. And I expect that you will go through the study material that is provided to you for further studies and knowledge. Thank you.
Dear learners, welcome to Ignou. You're going to lead with a difference. So how do you lead with the difference? The unique attributes of the university system through which you're going to go for the management program or any other program is the multiple entry and exit. It provides flexible learning where a learner can learn at its own will and at its own pace. It offers multimodal approaches. Like we have MBA, the normal through the distance learning mode and through online mode. So it has a multimodal approach. It has face-to-face counseling. It offers web counseling also. It provides continuous evaluation to enhance the skills of the learners through assignments. And it provides the opportunity for the learners to appear for the exams twice a year through term-end examination system. It gives interactive satellite-aided communication network through teleconferencing, and it also gives the radio counseling also. When we talk about School of Management Studies, it was the first school and it had the pioneer program of Diploma in Management. Till date, it has been offering around 14 programs in management and 13 programs in commerce disciplines. The school has international presence as well as it provides the programs in specific Asian and African countries across the globe. Now talking about Master of Business Administration. What are the objectives? What are the learning objectives of this Master of Business Administration? What are the unique features of this Master of Business Administration which Ignou is offering? First of all, it revitalizes and accelerates the pace of your professional development. And how can it do it? Through this program, which is one of its kind,
Hello viewers, as you know that today there is another diplomatic crisis after the post G20 conference in India, especially the relation between India and Canada. We are going to focus what are the causes, why these relations going to be down, what kind of the crisis, what kind of the question marks is there from the both sides. If you look at the international relations, the first time after the 1947, after the independence, India facing some diplomatic crisis with the Canada. We know this is not good for any emerging economy or emerging leading power, because you have to cooperate with all the major powers and emerging economy. So let's think what is the causes, why we are face up with this bilateral relations, diplomatic relations, what is the role of other countries, the major powers, especially UK, US, and other powers, how to going to sort out the crisis between the India and Canada. Let me first know where is Canada, what is the importance of Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he also attended G20 meetings, but there is some direct or indirect, some political crisis is there after the G20s, especially some of the issues we are facing in the terms of, we say, diplomatic crisis. If you look at Canada, Canada is the northern hemisphere countries in the North America. If you look at Canada's political systems, it is, we can say, the federal state after 1869. Being a federation, Canada is a representative democracy and the constitutional monarchy. Still today, Queen Elizabeth is the head of the state, but Prime Minister is Justin Trudeau. He is in power since 2015. There is upcoming elections, national elections in Canada in coming months. If you look at the political systems and the federal constitutional monarchy, it is running like Westminster democracy, like United Kingdom. But there is two parliamentary, two bodies, upper house and the lower house. Bicameral parliament, we say House of Commons, and the Assembly of Parliament is there. In last 20 days, there is a hot debate about the India's Canada relations in Canadian Parliament. Leader oppositions and opposition also focused how to maintain. Recently today, few hours back, Canadian Prime Minister's spoken, we are trying to cement the ties with India. Let's hope for the best. Look, whatever the regions. This is the picture during the G20 where Indian Prime Ministers met, interacted with the Canadian Prime Minister. Yes, these were the symbolizations during the G20 where the most of the leaders of the G20s have interactions with the Indian Prime Minister at Bharat Mandapam. They are discussing about many issues, political, economic and other things. It is the face who recognize whatever the relations, the level of relations between the India and the Canada. That's matter for today. If you look at the historical view, diplomatic views, political, economic views of what kind of the relations, why this crisis rises today, simply we say Canada and India have long-standing bilateral relations built upon the shared traditions of democracy, pluralism, and strong interpersonal connections. In second side of the story, we say Canada is the home of the largest community of Indian origins, that is the Punjabi community. It is approximately 4% of Canadian being of the Indian heritage. India-Canada share a strategic partnership underpinned by the shared value of democracy and pluralism. We expanded through the different economic engagement, regular high-level political and diplomatic relations, long-standing people-to-people ties, interactions between the two community Indians. Diaspora is there. They play the very significant role in their local politics as well as the national politics, especially the Punjabi community. We can say India and Canada bound by shared idealisms and liberal international commitment to normative global orders. It is the remark by one of the expert of international relations why India and Canada relations is important, and what kind of idealisms and liberal internationalism commitment is there for the promotion of democracy and other things in the present normative global order. If you look at the political systems, political history, with the connection and link with the India, we say Canada is the home of 1.2 billion persons of Indian origins. It is the largest immigrants after the British and the French who settled down there, the first. Then after the Asians moved to the Canada. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited 2015 after the winning the elections in 2014. It was historic because there is a lot of agreements signed between the two countries, the beginning of new levels of political history, diplomatic commitment to cooperate each other in the international political system. There is a deep cultural and political ties between the India and the Canada, strengthened by growing network of official dialogues, agreements, MOU, and many more things. But recently, we know what is the causes, what is the main bone of contentions. That is the tension spike after the Canadian Prime Minister say credible allegations against the Indian agents was involved in the Hardeep Singh Niger murder. That's why the bone of contention between the two countries today, especially the diplomatic relations. Sikh religion is one of the largest community as a diaspora from the Indian origins there. This is the statistics who showing what kind of the populations India, Canada's Indian populations, Canadian, English, Irish, Scottish, French, Germans, Chinese, Italian, Indian and Ukrainians. It is about the 4% Indian presence is there in the Canada today. This is the demography. We know Canada is very important player for Indo-Pacific strategy, like India is also crucial player for Indo-Pacific strategy of Americans' view of the new global order, or whatever the containment of new confrontation with China and other things there, especially Indo-Pacific. Canada is a Pacific country. We have a strong bond of cultural exchange and cultural ties. Indigenous peoples in Canada, called by Pacific coastland and the shoreline forms of millennia, they have shared the indigenous trade networks, have historically extended to the indigenous people all around the Pacific. If you look at Canadian views, whatever we know the status of India, India is a very fast growing economy and leading economic power as well the political power in the new global order. So India's growing strategy, economic and demographic importance has a significant mark for the Indo-Pacific and the critical partner for the Canada pursuit of these objectives under the strategy. We can say Canadian thinks, that's why the 2 days in the mornings as a Indian time, Canadian Prime Ministers vocal about the stronger ties with the India because it's the strategic importance of India in the global orders, democracy, economic and demographic importance. If we look at the second part of discussions, the political and economic relations, that's matter for today's. India established diplomatic relations with the Canada since 1947. Bilateral relationships shared value, democracy, human rights, rule of law, and the pluralisms. Bilateral trade, especially in the economic context, we can say India and Canada amounted to about $6 billion annually. Indian investment in Canada was valued at about $4 billion today. Canada is 18th largest foreign investor in India with overall investment about $3,306 million from April 2000 to March 23. 600 Canadian companies have been present in India. 1,000 Canadian companies are also actively pursue the business in the Indian market. So market matters for the Canada, while along with Indian diaspora cultural links there. Both countries engage in technical negotiations for comprehensive economic partnership, SEPA, including trade, goods, services, investment, and the trade facilitations between the two countries. In 2022, India was Canada's 9th largest mercantile trading partner in the Indo-Pacific region, 13th largest mercantile trading partner globally, and the 14th largest destination for the merchandise export. We say for the Canada, India is the significant partner for economic links in Indo-Pacific under the new comprehensive strategy for this region. If you look at the SEPA, SEPA is important for enhancing cooperations between the India and the Canada, especially that is called Comprehensive Economic Partnership that reviews the bilateral relations $4.4 to $6.45 billion, GDP gains US 3.8 to the 5.9 billions. It is the round of figures, it is the projected figure almost by 2035. That is the patterns of the trade between the India and Canada. We hope that it will be more larger than whatever we are expecting today in the 2035. That matters. Canada is very close, a strategic partner of United States as well as United Kingdom. Look at this, the pictures establish the European links with the Canadians, especially 19th and 16th to 17th century. There, this is the recent pictures during the G20 where Canadian Prime Minister visited in New Delhi with the family at the Gandhi Ashram. If we go through the recent crisis, I already highlighted what is the issues, why they are the bone of contentions between the India and last week, India asked the Canadian government to reduce its diplomatic staff in the country. More than half of the tries, around 40 diplomatic staffs, after Justin Prime Minister's publicly aired suspicions that Indian agents were involved in killing of Sikh separatists in Canada. It is the Canadian views that there is a separatist leader. It is the Indian views there. But it is not good for the true democracy. The one person, Hardeep Singh Nijjo, was shot dead by unidentified gunmen outside the Sikh Gurdwara June 18 in one of the city of Canada. Whatever the blame or allegations of Canadians to the Indian government and its officials, its agencies, India had designated him as a terrorist 3 years earlier. Yes, India, whatever we have the sources through the agencies, we pass information to the Canadian government to check out these persons. But unfortunately, he did killed allegations that matters, not good for a bilateral relations. So recent allegations, if you look at there, it is the Prime Minister of Canada openly aired these things, the killing of Khalistani leader. But the government of India totally denied. Whatever the allegations made by the Canadians in publicly, Canadian, especially Canadian Prime Ministers, you say it is the intelligence sharing alliance of the Five Eyes. It is the group of the countries, especially Canada, Australia, UK and the US. Canada claim that we already shared about the murder of these particular persons. What is the intelligence sources is there, that the intelligence sharing with the Five Eyes. It is called in the alliance of the Five Eyes, which believed to have provided the information that helped the Canada. American ambassador also recently remarks about ongoing crisis between India and Canada. It is not good for the United States, so try to cement the bilateral relations. So a lot of news in here about it there. Recently, US Ambassador David Cohen confirmed that there was a shared intelligence among the Five Eyes partners. United States accepted whatever the views of Canadians, but trying to maintain the distance of this crisis. It is the Five Eyes who accused India to possible involvement in the killing of Khalistani separatists, but there is no any direct evidence. Indian government denied there is sharing of any information and intelligence view is there. But there is some information, some news in here, some reporting in the New York Times, United States about the Canadas and the Indias. Mr. Trudeau accused India of orchestrating the plot. Recently, Indian Foreign Minister met with the Canadian officials in US trying to resolve this bilateral crisis. We don't know the exact things because it's in a diplomatic way. What kind of the sharing of information between the India's officials and the Canadian officials, along with the Five Eyes, that matters. Canada's stunning allegations of India directed plot to kill this, especially this person, which is not good for the two democracies. We are global partners against the terrorism. We are a strategic alliance with the United States under Indo-Pacific, that's matter. So that's why the bone of contention, whatever the diplomatic crisis is there, that the particular persons, whatever the Canadian Prime Minister's blame or allegations to India, but India denied it, the killing of a separatist leader. In the particular perspective, you can say, for the democracy, it is not good to blame game theory is there. It is time for global cooperations, respect the sovereignty of each country. We can say there is a direct link with our market, Canada, US. If there is some impact on direct negative impact on India-Canada relations, surely it is also some impacts on India-US relations. If you look at the Canadian views, that's why the Canadian Prime Minister today trying to cement it, re-establish the diplomatic channels with India, normalization of the relations. So say India's strategic importance and leadership both across the regions and globally. It's matter for Canada today. They cannot reject the India presence, democracy, many more things is there. It is the time for opportunity to engage each other, especially in the time of crisis. Other officials of US, UK trying to cooperate from the both sides. They are not ready to openly say the one-sided. Yes, there is a sharing of intelligence about the informations, but they also trying to cooperate to the India as well as the Canada to rebuild the relations, what kind of the gray area is there. You have to cooperate in terms of politics, economics, other engagement. That's matter for today's, because the G20, what about the commitment for the global engagement, the perspective of the South perspective, from the South perspectives, global South perspectives, that's matter for democracy, that's matter for economic and energy security, it's matter for economic and trade cooperations among the democracies, especially democratic countries, sustainable developments. But whatever the India stand is there, India rejected the allegations. Yes, it is a challenge for the Indian foreign policy and the foreign minister to how to rebuild the reties with the Canada. In the similar fashion, we can say Canadian must listen the Indian diplomats, Indian expert views. But whatever the allegations, it is not good for the allegations to blame to each other, especially the killing of one of the separatist leader. In the new global order, especially the post-pandemic, so we know for the US, Canada and India both are important for Indo-Pacific, as well as for the Canada, US and India is a specific important. India also, in the Indian perspective, Canada, UK and the US is important for the Indo-Pacific, Europeans also. So overall trying to build up to cementate the ties. Yes, there is some question mark. We should move beyond this sharing of informations, find out it was the whatever the situations, maybe it is the, but it is not good for any diplomatic cooperations if any prime ministers directly, openly allegations against any democratic leadership or country like the India. Thank you.
Namaskar and welcome